It seems over the past couple of months, several months, and if not the past few weeks or past week or so, a lot of people have been talking about Paige. Well, I could say this about Paige. If she wanted to get her name out there and basically be more relevant than any of the women in the WWE right now, if not any of the women in wrestling, period, then she's done just that. She's accomplished that. There is no doubt she has gone and accomplished that. But you see, with Paige, however, things are not so simple at times. You see, from what I can tell, Paige is the kind of a person that needs to be wrangled in. In other words, she needs to have somebody tie her down, or at least keep an eye on her, because because without someone keeping an eye on her, she might cause a scene, she might cause a commotion, she might even cause controversy. And without someone to wrangle her in, she might also do things that, well, could get her in more trouble as far as her job goes. Now, whether she has a prescription or she didn't, 2 times in a row she has been suspended. And here's the thing. It's the first time that I or anybody else has ever heard of somebody getting back-to-back suspensions. Like, oh, you just got off your first suspension, all of a sudden, just like that, you get another one. And this time it puts you out for an additional 60 days. And here's the deal. Paige and her family may have a legit reasoning as to why she may have a legit reasoning and justification for her suspension being lifted. They may have a legit reasoning as to why WWE should lift this new suspension. They may have justification. They may have proof that she has a prescription. But you got to remember one thing about WWE. Even though they're known as World Wrestling Entertainment, they do not have files on all prescription medications internationally. Because if they did, and whatever this prescription that they tested as an illegal substance on Paige for this recent suspension, if this is a prescription that was given to her by a doctor out of the United Kingdom, you can't say that WWE has that prescription on file. You can't say that whatever medication she was given out of the UK as a prescription, they have on file. Now, should they have every medication and prescribed medication from all around the world in all the countries they visit and tour in? Should they have that under file so that, the men and women that compete in their company that are from and live in other countries can do so, can continue working without getting in trouble? Absolutely, WWE should have a file for all those prescription medications. And the one thing that definitely puts this in a sense in Paige and her family's favor is WWE. They come out on the New York Post and say, "Oh, Paige, tested for an illegal substance." Okay, fine. What was the illegal substance? See, that, in a sense, could go in Paige's favor because, like I said, it could be a prescribed medication out of the UK, the United Kingdom, that WWE may not have on file. And this is something that hurts the WWE because if you're saying, oh, it's an illegal substance, and yet you find out maybe that illegal, and yet somehow down the line, people find out that illegal substance was actually a prescribed medication out of the UK, and oh, by the way, you don't have that on file, that is a two-way fault. I will say that. It is a two-way fault. One fault being on WWE for not having it on file, the other fault falling on Paige for not explaining that there could be certain medications certain prescribed medications she can only get out of the UK. Now, with that said, let's take a look at Paige in general. See, Paige could be the kind that, as I mentioned earlier, without being around WWE or someone in WWE to kind of lasso her in, kind of keep her under control, help prevent her from making mistakes and all that, she does look like, in all due respect to Paige, she does look like the kind of person that would go and probably do certain drugs or illegal substances, because, hey, she's not around the WWE right now. She pretty much has free reign to do whatever she wants. She could be the kind that would do that. And maybe in the process of doing so, forgetting that, when I get back, I'm going to get tested again. And if I get tested again, they could find that stuff in my system and I could get suspended again. Not taking that into consideration. And like I said, basically being free of WWE's reign right now, or control over her, or guidance over her, she could be the kind that would do that. It's kind of like similar to Ultimate Warrior. When Jim Hellwig, the Ultimate Warrior, went to WCW, a lot of people said that when he went there, despite the stories you believe, that when he went there, he didn't have no one guiding him. He didn't have no one controlling him. And that when he did his promo on his debut, he totally went off script. Or he totally went off point. Now, when people say that, hold on. Now, when people compare that run to his run in WWE, a lot of people will say that the Warrior's run in WWE went a lot smoother because of the fact that he had someone to control him. Well, not control him, but someone to guide him, someone to help him out. Some might say he did make his own decisions at times in WWE that didn't sit well with some people, and did sit well with some people, kind of a mixed reaction with some of the decisions he made during his 96 run. But the point is, folks, the common agreement is that when you compare both runs for Warrior, he had more of a controlled, smoother, more balanced run in his WWE days, in his days with WWE, than he did with WCW, because he had no control. He had no guidance. And I think anybody that's been in WCW would agree with the fact that the reason Warrior didn't work out so well there is he didn't have guidance. He didn't have someone to reel him in and say, hey, you can't do this, you need to do this. Or, yeah, you could do this, but kind of keep on point. Don't do too much. Don't go overboard. He didn't have that person to lasso him in. In WWE, he did. And that's a similar situation with Paige. Right now, she's not in WWE. She's outside of it. She's on the outside looking in due to her suspension and her neck injury. And because of that, she doesn't have anybody around her to reel her in and say, no, you can't do this. And no, you can't act this way. She doesn't have no one reeling her in and guiding her and say, hey, don't do this, don't try that, or anything. She's basically the Warrior. She's similar to, as people put it, the Warrior was in WCW. No guidance, doing whatever the heck she wants. Whether people liked it or they didn't. And some people can point to a picture, because I thought about this when I saw said picture too. It's a picture of Paige putting up the peace sign, sticking her tongue out with a hat, wearing a hat on backwards. Now, some might say, well, that's typical Paige. There's no big deal with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And that might be true. But here's the thing. Who's to say those in WWE don't take that the wrong way? Because nowadays, you're in a PG era. You're in a PG era. Sort of a PG. Let's put it this way. PG-13 error. PG-13 error. But even in a PG-13 error, you have guidelines. You have restrictions. You can't take pictures certain ways. And if you could, that's fine. Now, I'm not saying that WWE doesn't still do some lewd actions or anything like that. I'm not saying WWE doesn't do that. But someone might look at that picture of Paige, and first thing that could come to their mind is, here's someone we need to really keep an eye on, because, yeah, she could be a big name star for our company's women's division, but she's also the kind that on her own could get into a lot of trouble doing certain things, maybe certain substances. So someone could look at that and say, hey, we need to keep an eye on her. We need to reel her in. So to me, the situation with Paige is, I look at her as someone that still can redeem herself, can come back and get another fair shake, but she's also the kind that when she comes back, should she come back, because honestly, according to reports, WWE can't fire her because of her neck injury, because if they did that, it would look bad for them from a PR standpoint, which is true. But when she comes back, should she choose to come back after she's got her surgery or her neck issues worked out, basically, I look at it this way. Should Paige come back after her neck issues are dealt with and after her suspension is over, she is the kind that could benefit by a thriving run in the women's division. But she could also be the kind that would have to probably at times, at the beginning, slowly humble herself. In other words, if she wants to get that opportunity again, which I'm honestly believing is part of this as well. If she wants that opportunity again to be a champion, to be the top woman in that company, then she's going to have to slowly humble herself if she decides to come back. And with the situation going on right now in the wrestling world as far as TNA is concerned, I think her best option is WWE no matter what. And I think she knows that. And honestly, if I'm Paige, and like I said, I get all these personal demons and injuries worked out, then I do what I have to do. I humble myself. I make amends for what I've done, for the problems I've caused, whether I want to do it or not. Because God says you need to humble yourself. You need to swallow your pride. And I think Paige is at that point right now where she needs to humble herself. She's going to have to humble herself and swallow her pride and accept the fact that she is, and accept the fact that she is responsible for her actions, for the actions that she has done outside of WWE, and now she has to repay that debt. And whether that means jobbing for maybe a month or two in her first couple of matches back, then so be it. You're going to job. It's part of punishment. It's what you got to do, whether you like it or you don't. So if I'm Paige, if I decide to come back after my suspension is up, and my injury, my neck issues are all taken care of, and any personal demons I'm dealing with are, worked out, then if I'm Paige, I come back and I humble myself. I may not like the atmosphere, and I'm not, and even though I might want to go somewhere else, I'm not too sure of exactly, what options I have. Now, some people might say she has the Ring of Honor's Women of Honor. That's true, she does. But there's no championship yet for that women's division there. You might say, well, what about Lucha Underground? Yeah, she has that option too, but who's to say she might, who's to say what will happen there with her? What they'll do with her there. Some of you might say there's AAA. I know there's all these other options, but the thing is, from a major financial standpoint, her best option is, and I think a lot of people would agree, is to remain in WWE, humble herself, swallow whatever pride she has, and make up for any bad decisions she's made outside of the company. Because quite honestly, folks, right now she's making a lot of mistakes. Now, as far as her relationship with Alberto El Patron, Albertron or Del Rio. I have nothing against that. You know, there's an old saying. There's an old saying that goes along the lines of, age, when it comes to love, age doesn't really matter. Even if it's by several years, it doesn't really matter. Okay? Love knows no boundaries. Love knows no age. So I have no problem with that relationship between the two. Whether it's a good relationship or a bad relationship. Whether it's a good relationship or a neutral relationship, whatever you want to call it. I have nothing against it. That's their decision. That's her decision to be with him. Fine. You know, a lot of people might say, well, she just proposed. What about now some of you might point out that she just proposed to Del Rio at the WWC anniversary event in Puerto Rico. Yeah, she did. But here's the thing. Whether it's legit, it was a legit proposal, which it probably could have been, or it was a publicity stunt, again, it falls on Paige. Because you see, I think the reason Paige is doing this as well, the reason all this is happening, the reason, you know, she's getting, you know, the reason for the fact that she's coming out and her family's coming out and Del Rio's coming out to her defense saying, hey, she has a prescription. Here's the information, Sometimes it's a way to get yourself, like I mentioned earlier, is to get your name out there. Sorry about that interruption, folks. But like I said, you know, going back to the whole, you know, Paige proposing to Del Rio and stuff, and all this situation happening with them coming out in defense of her injury and all that. Sometimes when wrestlers or athletes do this, they do it for a reason. They do it because they want to get attention on themselves. So that if they decide to, let's say, take back what they've said, humble themselves in front of the world, if you will, do the job that needs to be done, if you catch my drift, then pretty much it's a win-win for them, because it's a win-win for both sides. Because one, if you're WWE, at least you get back one of your top talents as far as your women's division goes, and you've kind of won, and in your mindset, you've won because now this person is humbling themselves and apologizing for their actions and doing what they have to do to make up for it. But on their side of things, all the controversy and chaos and whatever you want to call it that they've caused has gotten them a lot of attention, to where the fans want to see them, to where the fans will want and will be vocal about saying, hey, you got to push this person now. You got to push them. You got to do this. You got to do that. So to someone like Paige and to Paige, Del Rio, and their family, in their mindset, they've accomplished what they needed to accomplish by getting her name out there even more so, getting her over more so than she's ever been, so that fans will want to get behind her more than anybody, and fans will want her to be the face of the women's division, whether it's on Raw or it's on SmackDown. That's the truth. That is the absolute truth, in my opinion. Because why else would Paige be doing this? Paige you think Paige would know better, like, hey, don't say anything, let me just deal with it, I don't want to get in any more trouble. Paige, you think, would know this, but, you know, some might say Paige is not that way. Paige could be very outspoken. It's true, Paige could be the kind of person that could be outspoken. There's no doubt about it. But let me ask you this. When Titus ONeil got suspended earlier this year, yeah, a lot of people balked at it. A lot of people said it was bullshit. Excuse my language, God. But a lot of people said it was BS. A lot of people said it was ridiculous. All because what? He touched Vince McMahon. He was just trying to be friendly. And he gets 60 days. And the whole racial situation came up. But did Titus do anything? Did he come out and say, oh, it's ridiculous, da-da-da-da-da? Not that I know of. He just dealt with it. He said, fine, that's cool. He dealt with it. He didn't make a big deal about it. Because he knew he could try to get himself over on his own without having to resort to these kind of to putting it out there in public. Yeah, he got over because other people were talking about it, don't get me wrong, but he didn't go on social media and say anything. He didn't make a spectacle of certain things. No, he just continued just being himself. He just lived out, he just did what he had to do. He did things the way Titus would do them. He still did charities if he had to do them. He still visited hospitals. He did what he had to do to kill the time. The thing is with Paige is it seems to me that Del Rio and her family are desperate for her to be what they believe WWE were going to make her, and that's the face of the women's division. So to me, I look at this several ways. I look at it from the fact that Paige is desperate for attention so that when she comes back, people will get behind her and want to see her get pushed to the top, as well as someone that believes that unless she does something like this, that when she comes back, she's just going to become irrelevant. She's just going to be another face in the women's division. That's not entirely true, because she can still make a name for herself, but she's got to do it in a way. She's got to do it in a way that even though she may not like it, it's going to be beneficial for her in the end. For me, let me give you an example. I would like to be, as crazy as this sounds, a CSM, which is a customer service manager, or at least a backup CSM. Someone that knows what to do, but is not full CSM. Someone that is mostly, let's say, cashier. I would like to do that, but I can't. Because even though a lot of people come to me and they ask me questions about what to do, what's the code for a watermelon or a pumpkin or whatever, or ask me how certain things work as far as gift cards go and stuff, or layaway, or even customer service, I can't do it. I'm not there yet, if you will. Even though I have the credentials, if you could say, to be a backup at least, I can't do it. I'm not there. I'm not been given that opportunity. Yet, there's someone that hasn't been around, that's only been around, a couple of months, several months, if you will, a couple of months, maybe 4 or 5 months, or 4 months, 4 months at best, maybe 3 at the shortest, and yet she's already being groomed possibly to be a CSM herself, but she's not experienced yet. And you see, I can go out and I could tell people, hey, I would like an opportunity, I'd like to get a word put in for me, but I don't take it any further than that. I basically humble myself and say, you know what, my time's going to come when it comes. My opportunity's going to come when I least expect it. And that's the thing with Paige. Paige needs to be the kind, that just like a Titus, you think Titus is complaining that he's not being pushed? No, he's coming up with certain gimmicks, certain ideas, certain ways to get himself over so that eventually he'll get that opportunity to be a top tier guy. He's taking his time. And he realizes that, hey, even if I don't get over, he is over, there's no doubt. Fans like the guy. Fans communicate with the guy, there's no doubt about it. But the thing is, he's basically like, hey, if I don't, he's got to me, Titus has the kind of attitude that's like, hey, even if I don't get that opportunity to be one of the top tier guys, one of the top tier champions, hey, at least I had a great run. At least I had an opportunity to live out a dream and do it in certain ways that were enjoyable, were entertaining. And, to me, Paige needs to look at it from that same perspective. She needs to realize that, hey, I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't come out and be outspoken like this because it could hurt me. I need to be humbled. I need to basically be like, hey, the opportunity's there, but it's going to come when I least expect it. That's what she needs to do instead of causing all this drama. And like I said earlier, as far as her prescription medication that's probably out of the UK, she needs to let WWE know, and WWE, because it's partially their fault too, needs to say, hey, look, We need to start putting all these prescription medications from an international standpoint, not just a United States, North American standpoint, but from an international standpoint. We need to put a lot of these prescription medications on file so that we don't deal with this kind of crap in the future, so that we don't deal with this kind of crap again in the future. So, to me, I think that's what needs to be done on WWE's part. And as far as Paige, once her suspension's over and she's dealt with her personal issues and injuries, then when she decides to come back, and she probably will, that if I'm Paige, I humble myself. I humble myself. I swallow my pride. I apologize for any trouble I may have caused. I do what I need to do to accept whatever punishment they give me, whether it's jobbing out to people that a lot of fans could say, hey, she should beat her and not job to her, and so be it. That's what I would do if I was Paige. But we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out with Paige, and just pray that she gets her head on straight. And guys and gals, just pray that Paige gets her head on straight, and hopefully she'll be able to realize, hey, I shouldn't be causing all this drama, and just accept things for what they are. And that's all I'm going to say, folks. Let me know down below what your thoughts are, and I'll talk to y'all later.